Um, Welcome everyone to today's webinar. Today we have with us Professor Gurveer Singh Jaiswal, who is the Dean of Soil PGPM programs. Gurveer sir also worked as the National Head of Potash Security Commodities. He has a vast industry experience of over 16 years and 3+ years of academic experience. Gurveer sir teaches finance and strategy at Soil. He is also a EFPM scholar in strategy from MDI Gurgaon. Over to you, Gurveer sir.
Thanks, Harsha. Good evening, everyone. Hi, my name is Gurveer, and as Harsha said, I am the Dean at Soil PGPM. I come with industry background, like he said, having worked for 20 plus years in industry, and then I made the switch to education. Okay, so today, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about a topic which is called as innovation. So, have you guys heard of innovation? Anyone would like to define that? What is innovation as per you? Anyone would like to write in the chat? When I say innovation, what do you mean by innovation? Anyone? Any thoughts, any ideas on what innovation is? I'm sure you would have heard of this word innovation. Repeatedly people talking, companies talking about this innovation. So any idea what is this innovation? Anyone? Any thoughts, any process? I mean, you're more to welcome to share it in the chat session. Or any company that you've heard of, which you think has, okay, so we have question, we have someone here, new creative, she's saying new, okay, new creative, okay, good. Anyone else? Anyone else? What is innovation? And to further ask you, why do you think it is so important today? Why are we talking about innovation? And the topic is that innovation as a competitive advantage. So that means innovation can help you build competitive advantage vis-a-vis your competitors. So why innovation and why are we talking about it in today's industry scenario? Anyone? When we create or develop anything or idea which doesn't exist before, okay, which doesn't exist before, okay, anything different from traditional, interesting, okay. Any other thoughts? So any does Prashant, any innovation always have to be something that which didn't exist before? Can you innovate in new things also? Does it always have to be? Because innovation is a very interesting word. It has many connotations. So what is innovation? Anything different from traditional? This is what we heard. Anyone else? Okay, so let's try and go and try and work out on what innovation is in terms. Now, have you guys heard of these companies that you see? I'm going to show you some companies on the board. Have you seen these companies? Anyone? Okay, anyone knows what went wrong with Motorola? These are companies from it's a very popular American brand from the 80s and 90s. Has anyone heard of Motorola? And has anyone heard of what Motorola used to do? Anyone? So why are we? What went wrong with Motorola? Motorola was a very popular company, and suddenly things went wrong. So anyone knows what went wrong with Motorola? Or Nokia? I'm sure all of you would have heard. So let's start with the easy one, Nokia. What went wrong with Nokia? Anyone? Do we hear about Nokia, Motorola in this time? Anyone? So what went wrong with these organizations? Resistance to new technology, yes, absolutely. Uh, Anything else? So you hear another company called AOL and IBM. So what went wrong with IBM? You see, at any point, all of these companies that you see, General Motors, Motorola, IBM, Nokia, they failed to innovate. Motorola was a very popular company in the 80s. It was a telecommunication business. But like Nokia, suddenly today we don't hear about Motorola. Motorola at one point was had one of the highest market capitalization in the American businesses. But today we've not heard about it. Same happened with Nokia. Same happened with BlackBerry. I don't know many of you have used BlackBerry or not. This is the pre-iPhone times when we had BlackBerry, but they failed to innovate and they lost out. Look at Kodak. Kodak failed to anticipate that the world is changing from film photography to digital photography. General Motors in the 70s failed to understand that the American buyers are shifting for cars. They don't want those huge trucks that General Motors used to make or the large, petrol guzzling SUVs they made in the 70s. They wanted family cars which are smaller and cheaper. Why? Because even in country like the US, the price of oil was increasing. Now, all of these companies at some point in time failed to innovate. And many of them today have ceased to exist. Nokia was sold off, BlackBerry doesn't exist, Kodak doesn't exist, Yahoo was sold off, Polaroid, I don't think many of you have heard. Motorola does exist, but on a very smaller scale. General Motors has been struggling with debt. So innovation is something which is very important today. And without innovation, we find that it is not possible for you to adapt to today's needs. Okay, so let me very briefly start by identifying what do you mean by innovation. Innovation is derived from the Latin word innovare, which means to renew. In essence, the word has retained its meaning. Innovation means to improve or replace something, for example, a product, a process, or a service. So it could be improve or replace, which is why I asked. It needn't be something new. You could improve upon a existing process. That is innovation. My efficiency, my car, any car today in Delhi, if you drive, gives a fuel efficiency of not more than 7 to 8 kilometers per liter. If I can innovate with a petrol car which gives an efficiency of maybe 20 kilometers per liter with your AC on, that's innovation. It's nothing new. I have just improved upon something. Look at electric vehicles. You just replaced internal combustion petrol engines with uh, batteries, but that's innovation. So innovation needn't always be something new. There's a difference between innovation and discovery. So discovering something new is, or inventing something new is a part of innovation, but it's not the only thing in innovation, right? Now, I think that's it. Now, how do you innovate? Now, let me ask you, who do you think is Netflix's biggest rival? What do you think would be Netflix's biggest rival? Come on, let me ask you. Similarly, we talk about Indigo. Who do you think would be Indigo's biggest rival if I were to ask from the point of view of today's competitive advantage? Anyone? Okay. So for Netflix, Amazon Prime. Anyone else? Any others? Netflix. We're talking of Netflix. We're talking Hotstar. Very interesting. What about Indigo? Sony Live. Okay. Now we're looking at maybe vernacular language channels. What else? Z. Sleep. Yes. Excellent. I agree with Subhajit. As far as Netflix is concerned, for Netflix, they say sleep is your biggest rival. If the more hours you sleep, the lesser you'll spend watching Netflix at time. For Indigo and Vistara, their biggest rival is Zoom. For them, their biggest rival is Zoom, and they believe that if Zoom is successful, people will not take flights because they can just sit at home and do their work. Why would they want to take flights? So, this innovation is changing and this dimension of innovation is changing. And it is important for all of us to understand this nature of innovation. Because Asian Paints, Indigo and Vistara, how Saurabh, I didn't understand this. Can you explain how Asian Paints is a rival for Indigo and Vistara? Anyone, how would that be, Saurabh? Any thoughts, Saurabh? How is so? Any thoughts on how, Saurabh, you say Asian Paints is a rival? But okay. The point I was trying to the limited point I was trying to make is that uh, innovation is something where you look beyond. Okay, now there are three dimensions to innovation when you look at. Okay, And the first dimension is the first one, where it says same customer, same solution, which is direct competitors, which is where you all said, for Netflix, it is Amazon Prime or Hotstar. They all come in this category of one, this one category. They are here and they are direct competitors. They're solving the same problem for the same customer with the similar product. And here it is very difficult to innovate. Why? Because you are taking a head-on competition. What is the second thing? We're looking at a same customer, but you're providing a different solution. What is that? Traditional theater? Yes, traditional theater could be solving what is the problem of entertainment. So one problem could be that you're looking at theater. Many people look at theater for entertainment. So the same customer, you're providing a different solution. What is the third thing? The third thing, innovation, is that the same solution but a different customer. So when you say same solution but different customers, what are you doing? Different customers means you are expanding the market. You're growing the market. That means you are coming up with new technologies, new ideas, or new innovation which doesn't exist, or you're coming up with new segments which don't exist. Right? So I think we have a question here. Okay. So when you look at innovation, we look at it from three different dimensions. One, direct competition. Yes, Shiva. I think Shiva's raised his hand and maybe he would like to ask something. Go ahead. Yeah, Shiva. You wanted to ask something? Please feel free to type and we could discuss. Uh, any questions on this, Shiva? Or do I go? Okay. So three basic aspects of innovation. Direct competition. So what most people are trying to do, customers or most companies, are they are either looking at two or three. One is very easy. One is a very costly business. If you want to compete directly, which means you need to invest a lot in marketing, you need to have a lot of you need a lot of deep pockets if you want to compete directly. Same customer, different solutions. Yes, a lot of people are looking at same solution, different customers is slightly a higher game. It's slightly a different game, but that's where you could charge a premium. Yep. What else? Now, why do companies don't innovate? We've been talking about innovation. All of these ideas, look very interesting. Why do companies don't innovate? Fear of taking risks. This is true for all of us. We don't want to take risks. Many of us. I think many of you are brave enough to, maybe give up a job, think about giving up a job and coming here and maybe doing an MBA, add soil, or maybe because you want to add value. But individuals and organizations both fear taking risks. We are very risk averse. What is the second aspect that we look at? That there is a lack of market orientation. Most companies fail to understand their markets and customers. So when we talk about Polaroid, we know Polaroid failed because the market was changing to digital films. Japanese companies like Sony, Fujitsu came up with digital cameras. There was no need for you to have a film, a physical film. You could just save it on your laptop digitally anywhere. What is the third thing? Failure to scale up. A lot of companies realize that you need to scale. You need new markets, you need new internationals. In the 90s, if you see, China and India were growing markets. A lot of companies entered China and India, but many didn't. They failed to scale up. Poor organizational structure. A lot of organizations fail because of poor organizational structure and processes. They get a lot of comments that they want to innovate, they think about this thing, but the organizational structure is so poor. Look at PSU banks, look at public sector banks. They're the perfect example of poor organizational structure. Why were private banks and fintech so successful today? Because organizations like these PSU banks, they had poor organizational structure. One technology innovation took them 6 months to do, 6 to 10 months to do. How do they do it? How are they to do it if their organizational structure doesn't support? What next they have is wrong decision making. Um, just a second, guys. You just Sorry about that. I had to take an urgent call. Okay. Uh, so the next this thing is that they're wrong decisions. You know, lack of internal communications, a low priority on innovation. So there are a lot of reasons why companies fail to take innovate or take risks. So I think uh, 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 these are reasons why companies have failed to innovate or have failed to take risks. Uh, how does innovation help us? When we look at innovation as a competitive advantage, how does innovation help us? Innovation helps us by allowing us to grow our business. Any thoughts on this, that how innovation allows us to grow our business? Any idea?
Sir,
Any
you're on mute.
any idea how innovation allows us to grow up our business? Any thoughts? Any idea? Any thoughts? Any ideas on this? Expand and retain customers, Manvi. I totally agree. You can expand and retain customers. Okay. How many of you heard uh, build reputation in the market? Absolutely. If you keep innovating, it helps you expand and retain customers. It helps you build or your reputation in the market. Business growth ultimately helps you grow the business. It adds to your customers, it adds to your profits, it adds to your reputation. So innovation will help you grow business. If you come up with new ideas, with new products, it helps you. Innovation also helps you stay ahead of a customer in competition. How many of you heard of a company called General Electric? If you've heard of a company called General Electric, in India, General Electric also manufactures medical devices. What medical devices? I'm sure you've heard of ECGs. They monitor your heart. Many people are prone to heart diseases, and ECGs are monitored. Now in India, GE realized, unlike in the West, what happens is that most people go to a hospital to conduct an ECG. You need a doctor's prescription to conduct an ECG. You go to a hospital and do it. But in India, they realized many villages in India don't have access to these hospitals. So what do they do? So they created an ECG which can be fitted in a small, box. In a small box, it can be fitted, and that box can be taken to many places. So what happens is, this is innovation. This helps them stay ahead of their competition. Right? Innovation, in a way, helps you take advantage of new technologies. If you have innovation, there are new technologies, and those new technologies will help you stay ahead of them. So innovation is something which really helps you take advantage and helps you stay ahead of competition by helping you embrace new technologies. Now, how do we innovate? There's a very interesting innovation landscape that we have, in terms. Now, this is a very interesting model that McKinsey follows. McKinsey follows a very interesting model. Now, how do they decide on innovation? Any innovation is looked on two parameters. One is a business model, and the other are technical competencies. So the first innovation they look at is any innovation which can be done on an existing business model, or which can be done using existing technical competencies. This is routine. Anything which uses your existing business model or your existing technical competencies is called as routine. Anything which requires a new business model and can leverage existing technical competencies, it is called as a disruptive model. Anything like video on demand or anything, this is a existing technology, but it is using a new business model. What is something which is radical? Something which is radical is when you require a new technical competencies, but you can leverage an existing business. What is something which is architectural, which is the ultimate level? That is something where you'll require a new business model. At the same time, you also will require a new technology. Right? Now, okay, someone wants me to explain disruptive. Okay. Before I explain all this, do you understand what are business models? What are business models? Anyone? Because that is very important. Technology, I know you understand. What are business models? Anyone? What is business model? This is a very important term because on the graph, On the y-axis, you see requires new business model and leverages existing business model. What is a business model? Anyone? Basic process of functioning, rules and regulations, no. See, a business model is nothing but how do you deliver value to the customer? Okay. Now, value, when I say value, how do you deliver a tangible benefit to the customer? Okay. So Netflix business model is digital streaming services, right? That is a digital business model of that. What is the business model of Maruti? It is through a dealer distribution network, they deliver cars to you, right? So that's a business model, right? Now, when I look at a disruptive business, in disruptive, what you have, you need a new business model. That means you are selling a similar product, but on a new business model, right? Now, what is us? Let's take the example of a taxi. Now, a taxi can be individually run. So I could book taxis directly or individually. So that is routine. So routine means I run a taxi, I go to my customer, they call me and I go to them. That is routine. Now, how does the routine become disruptive? If the same taxi, I take it a new business model, which is Uber or which is Ola, it becomes a new business model on the same product. Therefore, it is disruptive. Right? The other question is how to use innovation in a service model. Okay, this is very interesting. Before I answer, why don't we leave it open as a question to others? How do you think you would use innovation in a service model? Many of you would have worked in IT companies if you are here, or you work with startups and all. How do you use innovation in a service model? Any ideas? Any thoughts? How do you use? And the same existing domain, same service, in service, how do you use? How do you, any thoughts? How are service companies using innovation? We've been talking about a lot of service companies like Netflix and all. Yes, anyone? Basic structure, rules, offer products, use of chat GPT. Okay, very interesting. Generative AI. But what else? Generative AI is like, see, when you're looking at service industry, how is service industry looking at innovation? Firstly, if you see, let's take the example of Netflix. I'm sure all of us use Netflix. Now, if I open Netflix of all of you, the homepage of your Netflix will vary by from each of us. My homepage of Netflix will be very different from your homepage. The recommendations I will get are very different from yours. So one of the most important aspects that people are using in is data. A lot of service companies are using data. Netflix is using data. If you look at fintechs, they are using your data. If you look at banks, banks are trying to understand your spending patterns to give you better product. Yeah, are you booking air tickets? That means you're going on a holiday. That means do you need a personal loan for it or a travel loan? Do you need travel insurance? So in when you're looking at service sector economies, one of the most important aspects people are using is data to offer personalized services. And that's very important. So a lot of service industry works on differentiation, so or mass customization. So that means we are customizing products on a mass scale for you as per your requirement. I hope that is correct. So any other questions or thoughts on this that you might have? And this is a very interesting process in terms of how you build an innovation strategy. Uh, I, I I don't want to get much into detail on it because it's a very I'm sure as part of our strategy goes we will be looking at it, but it has multiple this thing that what is the purpose of your innovation? What is where the playing field? What is the unique way? What are your capabilities? So it's a matrix where you look at each of these parameters. I don't want to get much into this. I think I would be more happy by stopping to share and looking at your questions. That what questions do you guys have? So you could ask me about innovation, or you could ask me about anything beyond innovation about soil. I'd be more than happy to take them. Okay, how to identify when innovation is required in business? Okay, see, there is no. Let me be honest. There is no real clear-cut answer in this. But what happens is that there are two, three triggers that you can see. One obviously is a financial trigger, that if you see suddenly, if you see a direct competitor coming in and your sales are following, so that's a financial trigger. Second trigger could be a trigger where a consumer's preferences are changing. Now, if you've heard of Hero Honda, I think Hero Honda Splendor motorcycle is one of the most popular motorcycles that Hero Honda has ever manufactured. Okay, now uh, the people's preferences were changing. Bajaj kept making scooters, but the consumers' preferences changed to motorcycles, and the market changed, and Bajaj lost out. And the third, obviously, is technology. So you have technology, you have consumers changing, and also when your products become old and your direct competitors' products are more better than you. So that's how you try and identify when you innovate, but it's very difficult. Most companies know the science, but they don't do it. Bajaj knew the market is changing, but they continue to stick to their strengths, which was Chetak, because they felt that is their strength and their market will turn. Now, Vidit has said, I didn't give any entrance as the exam dates were missed. He would like to take. So, Vidit, I suggest you fill up the application form. Since you're talking about the admission process, which is this thing, you fill up the application form. And one for PGDM, sorry, Vidit, uh, since I look after the PGPM campus, I can only guide you on the PGPM process. For PGDM, if I'm not wrong, the entrances are mandatory. Uh, I think, but you'll have to speak to someone in the PGDM. And if you could maybe one-to-one give us your contact details, we could have someone from our career counseling from our counseling team speak to you on that. But if there are any questions with regard to PGPM, I'll be more than happy to answer. So now in the 1 year application process, we have a test which is known as STAT, which is our internal test, and you have to give that test, which is anyway mandatory. So you have to give that test, and basis that test is it's one of the processes in the selection process. So you come in, there is an activity, then you have a STAT test, and then you have an interview process. So that's how the 1 year program goes. So we have an internal test which is called STAT that you have to give, and which is mandatory for the selection process. How is how is soil able to deliver all the required skills, knowledge in less much time compared to PhD? Okay, it's a very interesting question that how are we able to deliver in the 1 year program as well as the 2 year program? Now you remember that in the program, the 1 year program that we have is of two parts, which is the BLP and the HRLP. For the BLP, 2 years experience is mandatory, minimum 2 years experience is mandatory. Now, for the HRLP also, we prefer candidates with experience, but we sometimes do take candidates with lesser experience also, or freshers for the HRLP. Now, what is different? You see, in a 2 year program, what happens is that, mostly people are freshers who are, bulk of them are just out of their academic journey. While in the 1 year program, most of you have, most of you have worked. So what happens is that because you have worked, we already have a base set. And in this 1 year, what do? We work on you on multiple parameters. One is your academic parameters, obviously, because we are an academic institution. Second, we work on a peer-to-peer learning where we guide you. We have global partnerships. We also have live ongoing projects. So this one, while the program is a 1 year program, the rigor and the rigor of the program is as much of a 2 year program. So it's a very fast-paced program. We don't compromise in terms of the learning anywhere. Yeah. So how do we allocate seats in Gurgaon and Manesar? There are two different programs. The 1 year program is in Gurgaon and the 2 year program is in Manesar. Both are mutually exclusive. So there is no allocation of seats. Both are independent. Both have an independent process from applications to the selection. So both campuses run their own because they're both widely different programs. Yep. Okay, how are consulting companies using management consulting? Okay, I'll give an example. Since I worked in finance, how so the question is how consulting companies are using generative AI. Okay, and I'll tell you the experience of how they are using it. Because if you look at a lot of consulting companies, specifically in the field of finance, are working on a lot of issues like risk management. You know, risk management, identifying risks for companies, identifying risks for financial institutions. Risk can be credit risk, it could be forest risk, it could be environmental risk, and a lot of these things is where generative AI is being used. A lot of consulting companies are working in the domain of and money laundering and compliance, which is where generative AI is being used. So there are a lot of processes where consulting companies are using generative AI. uh, you have wealth management where generative AI is used to, as per your risk appetite, to give you a model portfolio. So there are a lot of aspects where consulting companies are working on generative AI in consultancy. So PGPM, in terms of PGPM, we don't give a degree. Degrees are given by a university. We give a certificate, which is the PGPM certificate. Why? Because consciously we decided that for the 1 year program, we will keep ourselves align more with industry rather than with the government. I think that's a conscious decision from our part. So our PGPM is a certificate that we give. Manvi says as a fresher, what criterias of selection? So Manvi, for the BLP program, which is finance, marketing and analytics, we require mandatorily minimum 2 years of experience. For HR, we look at freshers a very selected capacity, but that is also then it depends on your academic background, on your academic scores, whether your academic background is relevant to HR, also how you perform in the selection process. So we do take HRs for the 1 year freshers in HR for the 1 year program, but that's very nominal and very rare now. Any thoughts, any questions that you might have? Okay, let me ask you. Is there a 2 year program? Yes, we have a 2 year program, which is the PGDM program, which is at a Manesar campus, which is known as SOBD, Soil Business Design. So you could just look at that. Is there any student able to act for both HR? No. So the BLP is a separate program and the HRLP is a separate program. You could, within marketing, within analytics, and within finance for the 1 year program, you can choose specialization. When will the PGTPM call will be out? I think, like I said, I'm for the 1 year program, so I will not be able to help you out, but I suggest you speak to your career counselor there. So how you onboard? Mm, how do we onboard companies? There are multiple touch points on how do we onboard companies. Firstly, if you've gone through a website, you know that Soil was curated by about 32 consortium companies which we've been associated. They are a source of companies through which we onboard. Second, we have a lot of alumni working. We have more than 1,000 plus alumni working in many companies. We use them to onboard company. Thirdly, we have a career management team, CMS team, which is regularly in touch with companies which are regular recruiters across the years. That is how we onboard. Uh, so there are various touch points through which we onboard companies. Last year finance package, I think, if I'm not wrong, our last year finance package was somewhere in the range of about, for the 1 year program, about 11 lakhs. That was the average package. No, this is for the PGPM. Again, I'm saying whatever I'm talking about is for the PGPM, for the 1 year program. So if I may ask you all, why do you all want to do an MBA? Any thoughts? If any one of you would just put up ideas, why do you want to do an MBA? So what are the analytical skills provided in PGPM HR? So we have HR analytics as a course. HR analytics is one of a course. We also have AI tools for HR as a course. So there is a lot of exposure to AI and analytics in the HR program. HR analytics, AI tools. They do capstone. So there is a lot of exposure. So change the field mainly in finance. Okay, so you want to move into finance, or you would like to move out. Okay, to learn and grow and contribute. Okay, and to get exposure to big. Okay, move into finance. That's an interesting. To understand business, I've got a this thing. Okay, so when I say business, are we talking of entrepreneurship or are we talking of corporate life? To change so entrepreneurship, okay. To get exposure to big companies, okay, I understand that. To learn and grow, contribute industry, which is very fair. Most of our students who come either are looking to change the domain or they are looking to grow in their industry because you see, I agree with Subhajit because the industry is changing and knowledge is changing very fast. You know what I studied 20 years ago in my MBA is irrelevant today. In your case, that life cycle will become even smaller. So in your case, maybe it could be 6 to 7 years. Every 6 to 7 years, the knowledge that you learn will change. Okay, Naveen says to understand business. Okay, with it says entrepreneurship. Very interesting. I think entrepreneurship is quite interesting because a lot of people do want to take it nowadays. Any other thoughts? Why MBA? Ambition to work in HR domain. Okay. Okay. Now, Raj Lakshmi, HR, it's very interesting you want to work in HR, but HR is a very broad domain. So L&D, organization development, talent acquisition, performance management, or analytic. What, see, hostel is not, again, for the 1 year program, hostel is not mandatory because most of you are fairly experienced, have worked out. So we don't insist. You could stay in a PG in Gurgaon or anywhere. So hostel is not mandatory for the 1 year program. But we advise you to stay in Gurgaon. Many of you are based in Delhi, but we advise you to stay in Gurgaon because it is convenient that way. So do stay in the vicinity, but hostel is not mandatory. Class hours. Your classes can happen at any hours, let me tell you. You might get assignment in the middle of the night at 1 o'clock also to submit it early in the morning. It's an MBA program. It's not like a government office from 9 to 5. So Sudarshan, please let me be very clear. Class hours can happen anytime. You can have a class in the morning, you can have a class in the evening, afternoon. You get an assignment at 12 in the night. So Professor A and B, Atindranath Bhattacharya, our marketing guru, he's famous for giving assignments at 12 in the night. So you can, so your 1 year, let me tell you something, for the PGPM 1 year program, 1 year rigorous it is. And let me tell you, you are not only in classes, you are also doing your assignments, you'll have industry interactions, you will have social innovation programs, you will have experiential learning programs, you will have peer-to-peer learning where you'll be interacting with people. So let me put it in Hindi, एक साल तक भूल जाओ कि hours क्या होते हैं. Every hour is a good hard work. Can you give a glance? PGPM HR placements. Okay, sure. See, when you look at HR placements, there are multiple types. Some of them are traditional manufacturing companies like Volvo, Eicher, which come. We get traditional companies also which come for these roles. A lot of new age companies are coming. Fintechs like Five Paisa, Kotak Securities are coming. They come. In terms of roles, when you look at talent acquisition is a role, OD, organization development roles are coming. A lot of roles are coming from ABC consultants and all for recruitment. A lot of new age roles, especially for companies. If you heard of Zing HR, they're a new age HR software company. So a lot of roles. So we get a mixture of roles across old and new companies for HR. Can you schedule a meeting for PGDM? I'm sure, well, a marketing team is here. I'm sure for PGDM, they would be fixing a webinar. So with it, and so you could be in touch. Okay, what is experiential learning? Interesting. What is experiential learning? Experiential learning is when it's learning by doing. Okay. So what do we do in this experiential learning? We have a theater workshop. Our students attend a theater workshop at our campus. So what happens in theater? It's something called freedom from fear. You can come out of your fear. You public speaking, so speaking in front of a crowd. These gives you exposure to all. So Then we have yoga, which is another form of experiential learning. So any experiential learning is nothing learning by doing. So this is experiential learning, non-academic. In academic experiential learning, you would have case studies where you look at real world situations and solve them. Uh, or you could have experiential learning by way of solving real world problems. So if you go back about, I think about a month back, Gaurav Mehta, the CMO of Boat, I'm sure, sorry, CMO of Noise was here, and our students, so presented solutions to a real world problem to to the company. So experiential learning is nothing but learning by doing. What are the okay, Raj, let me organizational development. If a student wants to work in this role, what are the qualities, nature of the candidate required for? So I mean, I think there is nothing. So I think firstly, Rajlakshmi, I think if you're interested, please read about organizational development. One of the most important aspects companies expect is that when you say I'm interested in OD, do you understand the meaning of OD? What is OD? What is the application of organizational development in today's world? How do you apply? If I ask you in organizational development, how would you, in today's world, how would it work? What are the sub constructs of it? So work on those aspects. I think that is one aspect. Understand the concept of OD very well, the theoretical aspect, the application part. I think that is the most important part. And I think for the last couple of years, I have seen that many students fail on this part. So when a company asks them what are they interested in, they will many students, say consulting. So the company next says, okay, when I say consulting, what do you mean by consulting? And students fall flat there. So please, any one of you, whatever domain you're interested, job profile, understand it clearly what it means. So when I say consulting, it could mean anything: financial consulting, oil and gas consulting. Am I looking at turnaround consultancy? Am I looking at HR consultancy? So Rajmi, when you say OD, please study about OD and understand what OD means and how you would like to add value. So any questions, or how to make CV for better job opportunity? Shubhajit, I cannot give you a generic answer. I'm sorry for that, because a lot depends on your experience, what type is. But you could maybe, I think there are a lot of tools available online, so you'll have to check onto that. But I'm sorry, I cannot give you a generic answer for that. There is no one generic answer for how to make your CV better. But yes, uh, firstly, be concise and be clear on what you've done. And also, many times, a lot of CVs that are shortlisted are done today using AI tools and keywords. So if you're looking for a particular job, try to include the keywords of that job. But I would say there is no specific generic. It depends a lot on your experience and the type of CV you have. What else should use for marketing? I didn't get. You'll have to be a little more specific. So when you say marketing, what sort of marketing are we talking about? Are you talking about what? So I'll come to you, Lalakshmi. But what are you talk? What sort of marketing are we talking about? If you could be a little brand management. Okay. Now brand management is a very interesting this thing. But what is interesting about brand management is that most people, does not get into brand management directly. Okay, if you work, if any one of you have seen the hierarchy of Unilever, which is where with the company with the biggest brands in India, most people when they start working in sales. You work as an area sales manager in Unilever or Procter and Gamble, Nestle, Reckitt Benckiser. In these companies, you work for 3-4 years in sales. When I say sales, you do your grassroots sales as an area sales manager. मतलब आप गाड़ी में जाते हो, डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर के से मिलते हो, everything you do. Once you do that, that is when you branch out into brand management. Because to understand brands, पहले कुछ sales आना चाहिए. To understand your consumer, you have to understand your market, the segments, the type of consumer you have. So if you want to join into brands, my friend Subhajit, पहले sales करना. You will have to get into jump into the this thing, get your hands dirty. Hand dirty man, there's a saying that you get your hands dirty by jumping into the water. I'm not saying literally get your hands dirty, but do sales, understand your consumer, perform in sales. Only then would you know you be, if you've done well, you'll get an opportunity to work in brand management. So sales. Okay, now there is another question from Raj Lakshmi that she talks about, what is the role of an HR business partner. See, now an HR business partner looks and how you can manage your organizational productivity. So what is an HR business partner doing? That how can your HR policies, HR guidelines be implemented in such a manner that you can increase the efficiency, coordination, productivity of your employees. Okay, now let's take an example that you call employees second and fourth Saturday is working. In banks today, second and fourth Saturday is working. That's an HR policy. Now, can you now let's say you want to give people a Saturday off to increase their productivity, but at the same time, you want to ensure that their working hours are not reduced. What would you do? Any thoughts? That's the role of an HR business partner. How can you improve the productivity by improving your HR practices and your guidelines? So you're like an internal HR person who's continuously working on improving each of these processes. Now you have performance and appraisal system. Most companies follow a bell curve. Can you improve upon the bell curve? Is a relative better or an absolute way of giving incentives better? So that's how a HR business partner works on these. Okay, guys, keep the questions coming. And what are the incentives would be better. Now, how do you structure those incentives? Do you give incentives monthly? Do you give incentives quarterly? Do you give incentives 6 monthly, or do you keep people on? Who should be on annual? Senior people will be on annual incentives, but junior guy wants monthly incentives because incentives are a big part of the salary. So how much should be monthly? How much should be quarterly? Kya karoge? So how do you ensure productivity? Incentives would be better hourly. I'm not sure how would you give hourly incentives. Do we incentivize people for working more? I think that's a very, to be very honest, that's a very uh, not. I personally not sure whether that will work. So, Harsha, I think are we done with the questions? Because I'm more or less.
I think we are done with the question, sir. We can call it a day.
I'm open. If there is any one last question, I'll be more than happy to take it. Otherwise, you could speak to your career counselors in or your admission counselors in the PGPM program, and they could connect you with me, or we could connect over social media or wherever, and I'd be happy to take this discussion forward. I mean,
Also, sir, just to remind, like Feb 17 is the application deadline.
yes, for the 1 year. Is there few more sessions? Yes, we would be having chance few more sessions. We'll be looking at multiple more topics across domains: marketing, HR, finance, strategy, economics. A lot of those we would be looking at. Uh, Many of you, if you are interested in soil, if you're looking at joining soil, I think just a word of advice while you work on your admission processes, if you are, because our course begins in May. If you're looking, if you're applying, do work on a lot of things like Excel. So if whether you do an MBA, don't do an MBA, please work on your Excel. MS Excel is something that all of you should know. Okay, so please do work on that. It's a very important and very powerful tool, and you will be using a lot of it at soil. While we also have a course on Excel, but we encourage you to know a lot of it because it helps us graduate you to an advanced level. I would say, read the newspaper, please. Even whether you do an MBA or you don't do an MBA, it's important for you to do it. If you're in the world of business, you should do it. And we will continue to have more sessions. Yes, sorry, Harsha, you were saying something with regards to the deadline.
So 17th is the application deadline.
Yes,
We have
17th
one
is
week
the,
left.
for the 1 year program, 17th is the application deadline. And if you have any queries, don't wait till the last day. I would recommend please apply early, as it always helps not to wait to the last moment.
And also for similar sessions like this, uh, we will keep updating on our website where you can register and take part in these kind of sessions. So keep checking our
Yes,
website. Yeah.
yes, we would be having that. When will the result 2 year PGDM? I'm sorry, I cannot comment on the 2 year program. I'm not the right person. Okay, last question. What is tested in a soil within the what you know? We are looking at very simple, Raj Lakshmi. For any student who comes in, does he fit into our program, personality wise, and his does he fit into the program? Does he fit into our philosophy? If we feel that, yes, we will do it. Basic coding and all, no, nothing doing. I think Excel is more than enough. Aap Excel hi kar lo. Excel itself is such a big software that if you can do it, that's it. And I said, just read the newspaper, business newspaper. All of you, buy. Please get a business newspaper. It's very important whether you do an MBA or you don't do an MBA. I always advise that. So great, guys. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a great weekend and all the best to you guys in your future.
Thank you, Guru.